Anything? Follow us on Facebook to get caught up. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk. Powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Silver studio and streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome. Welcome to The Big Show. Okay, I didn't do this yesterday, so I'm now writing notes of all the things in your newscast that tick me off. And I have two from the newscast you just did. Okay, so this is all bonus material because I don't have any of these things in the Big League. So the city of Seattle is going to put a, 24-cent a gallon tax on heating oil.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm one of those that still has heating oil.
Yeah. And they say they're doing it to fight climate change, but if you take the amount of carbon emissions based on homes heated by heating oil in Seattle relative to the entire planet, all it's going to do is cost mostly, no offense to you, Ursula, it's not you, but mostly it's elderly and lower income people who, and the stats have proven that have the oil furnaces still. And so they're going to screw over those people for no global benefit. But here's the thing. The guy who's been pushing this is Mike O'Brien, who's announced that he's going to retire from the city council. I'm telling you something right now, because here's what my sources are telling me. If Mike O'Brien ends up, after his city council career is done in November, if he ends up with a company that benefits from heating oil being taxed, or on the board of some environmental group that's been pushing for these things, if he is willing to screw, because this is a guy who's been screwing over taxpayers as much as possible because, as you know, he's never wanted for anything for 1 second in his life. This guy was born with a silver spoon. And if he is merely dropping this tax to screw over Seattle homeowners who still have oil furnaces.
That's about 18,000 households.
That's a lot. And you said it was $1.6 million a year that they're going to get screwed out of by this. You didn't say that. I'm adding that. I'm adding my commentary to your news fact. But if Mike O'Brien, I'm telling you right now, if he ends up with any company or nonprofit organization where his anti-oil advocacy proved to be a benefit to him personally, those 18,000 Seattle homeowners should sue his sorry butt, because that's what I believe is happening. And we will watch very closely. It's kind of like when incompetent Scott Kubley was running Seattle DOT, and he bilked the taxpayers out of millions of dollars for that bike share Pronto program, and then he ended up with a bike share company making a big salary. And then they discovered, oh, he's incompetent. We have to get rid of him. But him screwing over the taxpayers served its personal purpose for him, and I believe that's what Mike O'Brien's doing on his way out of town. And then the second story.
Dorie, just before you go on to the next one, because Mike O'Brien is behind the natural gas proposal.
And both of these.
And the mayor is also on board on this oil thing.
Well, yeah, she has to sign off on it, but they're in a position where none of them are going to say no to anything where they say, oh, it's for the planet, even though there's no cost-benefit ratio that makes any sense on that. I'm glad I wrote down the second one, because I would have forgotten by now. So there was a flood on I-5 this morning because Sound Transit, they were digging around one of those freeway sound barriers. Now, these are my two least favorite things in all of transportation, Sound Transit and freeway sound barriers, which is one of the biggest wastes of money ever. In fact, the former director of transportation in the state admitted to me that it was a waste of money when we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on these sound barriers. Well, now they got to tear them down. They've torn down thousands of evergreens, the last stands of evergreens right along I-5 in the Puget Sound area. And they're just destroying the environment, Sound Transit is. And then we find out they hit a water main. They hit a pipe. So if you or I'm going to talk to Chris Sullivan at 1:30 about this, but if you or they have these commercials all the time. Call 811 before you dig. Did Sound Transit call 811? Because if you or I do not call 811 and we hit a water main when we're doing some project at our house, guess who gets to pay for that? You and me, the homeowner. When Sound Transit hits a water main, guess who gets to pay for it? You and me, the taxpayers. They don't pay a penny. You and I will have to pay more because Sound Transit, once again, putting its gross incompetence on display this morning as they flooded I-5 when they broke a water main. And is anyone going to be held accountable? Of course not. Anyone going to be fired? No, it's tax money. Plenty more where that came from. Okay, that's all bonus material. Now let's get right to the big lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
Yes, we have exclusively learned here on the Dori Monson Show. Remember several weeks ago there was a father and son riding a Sound Transit bus to a Husky football game. And the dad, he was leaning forward on a seat, playing a video game with his son as they were riding the bus up toward the University of Washington, when all of a sudden a complete stranger thrust his clenched fist into the guy's chest, and it turned out that clenched fist was holding a knife. And he stabbed this innocent dad just trying to get to the football game. The stabber, alleged, has been identified as Jesus Sanchez. And what the Dori Monson Show has exclusively learned is that Jesus Sanchez is in this country illegally, and that he had had several previous encounters with law enforcement. And if we actually cooperated with federal law enforcement instead of had contempt for them, as everybody in Seattle and King County politics seems to have, they could have avoided, they could have kept this father from being stabbed in front of his kids. Now, the dad's going to be okay. But initially, the prosecutor charged this as a fourth-degree assault, which is a misdemeanor. Stabbing a stranger on a bus, plunging a knife into someone. Their initial reaction was, yeah, it sounds like a misdemeanor to us. But then they upgraded it to second-degree assault, which is a felony. But they're still not planning on cooperating with ICE on this guy. So here you have a guy with a long criminal history in this country, a guy who has stabbed another human being on a bus trying to get to a Husky football game, and there are still no plans to cooperate with ICE and to turn this guy over for eventual deportation after he serves whatever sentence he gets if he is convicted of this stabbing. Now I'm going to talk with the regional director for ICE on our show tomorrow, but our sources have confirmed that the man who is the alleged stabber was here illegally. And that's another case of where Jay Inslee, Dow Constantine, Jenny Durkin, with their proclamations of sanctuary, have blood on their collective hands. Because that's a stabbing that would not have happened if this guy had been deported in any of his previous encounters with law enforcement. And that's what we have to recognize, is that when our policies keep illegals with violent criminal history or actions here in the region, the politicians are responsible for whatever crimes are committed after they could have been deported. So Jay Inslee, Dow Constantine, Jenny Durkin, they are also responsible for that stabbing on the Sound Transit bus. Or, as Jay Inslee tells us,
while they're waiting for their asylum hearings, we're welcoming them to the state of Washington because we have found these folks frequently become pillars of our community.
Yeah, that folk on the bus, allegedly, not quite a pillar, Jay. Another Dori Monson Show exclusive in the Big Lead.
The Big Lead, Dori Monson Show exclusive.
A listener brought this to my attention, and I appreciate, once again, we get so many great exclusives based on listener tips. If you go to the state K through 12 education website for the superintendent of public instruction in our state, you will find a curriculum for the Seattle Public Schools that they have implemented this year. It is, and I am not making this up, it is the K through 12 Math Ethnic Studies Framework. Now I'm going to read to you what's in this curriculum because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a second, math is math. Math is numbers. Math is objective. So we're doing math as an ethnic studies exercise? Yes. So here are the themes. One theme is origins, identity, and agency. Origins, identity, and agency, as defined by ethnic studies, is the ways in which we view ourselves as mathematicians. Mathematical theory and application is rooted in the ancient histories of people and empires of color. It's math. What? I know that we're obsessed with these themes, but we're now reducing math to some divisive sociological issue. Theme number 2, power and oppression. Power and oppression, as defined by ethnic studies, are the ways in which individuals and groups define mathematical knowledge so as to see Western mathematics as the only legitimate expression of mathematical identity and intelligence. This definition of legitimacy is then used to disenfranchise people in communities of color. Did you realize when you subtracted two numbers, did you realize that you were disenfranchising people by using Western math? You bigot. Theme number 3, history of resistance and liberation in the math curriculum. The history of resistance and liberation, as defined by ethnic studies, the stories, places, and people who helped liberate people in communities of color using math. Access to mathematical knowledge itself is an act of liberation. And then finally, reflection and action. Student action, as defined by ethnic studies, is fostering a sense of advocacy, empowerment, and action in the students that creates internal motivation to engage in and contribute to their identities as mathematicians. Students will be confident in their ability to construct and decode mathematical knowledge, truth, and beauty so they can contribute to their experiences and the experiences of people in their community. So, of all the subjects that's being used as an example of ethnic studies, mathematics is now being trotted out by the Seattle schools. And as the listener said, the listener found this on the state superintendent's website and sent it to me. And he said, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. He said, if I had kids in the Seattle schools and I found out that they are using math, that's absolute insanity. But this is what happens when you allow radicals to take control of the schools. You start seeing problems where they cannot exist in the objective world of mathematics. I feel guilty. I'm never going to add numbers again, ever, after seeing this. So anyway, if you use Western math and you don't recognize the role that mathematics has played in all of these other issues I just read to you out of the website, then you're part of the problem. Okay, and finally, in the big lead.
The big lead. Your tax dollars at work.
Hey, are you one of those people who has a hybrid vehicle? Or maybe you have an electric car. And you did it because you wanted to save on gas tax, you wanted to help the planet, because everybody tells you that carbon emissions are such a horrible thing. Well, beginning today, if you're getting your car tab bill in the mail, you're going to see an additional, for hybrid and electric car owners, you're going to see an additional $75 a year car tab fee to finance electric car charging stations that you will never use. And the Seattle Times, they talked to a guy in Mason County who has a 2010 Toyota Prius. Brian Cook, he said, I was totally baffled. It's just another add-on, especially if you're retired. You're on a budget, and if $75 is taken out of your budget, you have to work around it. But the Democrats decided that they want to build electric charging stations around the state because electric cars, some of them have limited range, and they said that there's range anxiety, people who don't drive very far in their electric car. And so you're going to get to pay an extra $75 to pay for these electric charging stations that are going to be built in the future, a future that means you'll probably never use them. You already pay, if you have a hybrid, you still have to put gas in. You're already paying about 68 cents a gallon in gas tax. Now you get to pay an extra $75. But there is help on the horizon. I'm telling you, vote yes for Initiative 976. That'll restore $30 car tabs in Washington. And this death by 1,000 cuts, they'll have to put the knife away for a while. So let's get those $30 car tabs back and vote yes on 976. So I'm telling you what, after insanity like this. And that is your big lead for today.
The big lead on KIRO Radio.
Oh, we got a mystery a-brewing. You know, Macy's is closing the downtown Seattle store. And they said they're not going to hang the Christmas star this year because it needs repairs. But is that the true story? A resident historian, Felix Spinell, he'll tell us what he really thinks is going on. And this is a pretty good bit of speculation by Felix. You're going to hear it next here on the Dori Monson Show.